probably the mindset of placement being something to think about in sixth semester has to really change now, and students need to be building their skills and being aware.
In a high trust society like in the US, however many jobs I may have joined or my colleagues may have joined, nobody has ever checked the marks card or checked the.
If he was doing 8 hours of work for one company, what else would he do in the other few hours? He claims he did not have friends, he does not hang out with other people.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of HigherEd podcast powered by College.Dev, where we break down what's really happening across Indian campuses today. I'm your host, and today we are tackling the hard truth. Why is it hard for fresh graduates to land a job in the current job market? Let's start with the data placements. We are seeing a 50% dip in fresher jobs intake by top recruiters, and even IITs and NIITs aren't being spared. My question is, why are even elite campuses facing this hiring freeze? Is it just AI or something deeper? My first question is to you, Vishal. So,
I think it depends on what's the mood of the market, right? There was a time when they didn't even need people for the projects, they were still hiring because the mood of the market was that they would need them later and they should have them ready and trained. And everybody was investing in new projects. And world economy, especially the tech sector, goes into cycles. Sometimes there's a bull market, sometimes there's a bear market. Unfortunately, for the last 6 months to a year, the tech sector has been a little bit of a bear market, and it is which has aggravated by all these tariffs that US keeps talking about. It's uncertainty about those, and there's also uncertainty about AI. Is what impact is AI going to have, and how many new people are companies going to need? Companies are getting a lot of productivity from their existing employees itself. And if you look at most recent interviews of tech leaders, whether it be from Google or Microsoft, Tesla, Salesforce, you will notice that across the board they are saying that significant portion of their work is done by AI now. In terms of the code, not that all the code is not written by AI. Anywhere from 20 to 40% of the code is being written by AI. 20% or 40% of the code being written by AI means that they need that much less resources to do the same amount of work, right? So they obviously are not letting go 40% of their staff because they may have plans to increase the number of lines of work, new products, so on and so forth. But at the same time, they have to be careful about there's only a limited market for new products. They may double their product line, but they will not be able to quadruple it and then still find people to buy it. So this is a very uncertain time for businesses, and they're still trying to figure out what's the right balance and right number of people. I think once they figure that out, then they will start hiring again. And that's why entry-level jobs have suffered the most compared to other ones.
thank you. Bulema, from a manager's lens, how is this impacting the quality and confidence of fresh talent that's showing up at the interviews?
From the candidate side, I think it's becoming a lot frustrating to the candidate, first of all. They do see a lot of news articles where it talks about layoffs and no real fresher jobs available and the market depleting. So, from the candidate side, obviously it's frustrating to them. But from a manager's point of view, I feel that there is a little bit of a shift when we talk about interviews. We see candidates, first of all, who are not very well prepared and who are a little underconfident. Maybe this news is affecting their confidence also a little bit, because of which they feel they come across as very defensive and they might not put across themselves very well. And they feel a little, they undersell themselves. So that's one of the things that has come into notice. And I think from the candidate side of view, they have to work on upskilling themselves and not just depend on these full-time jobs that they are looking for, They have to go into freelancing, internships, identify any opportunity that they get where they get that real experience of work in the corporate field.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Arvind, you are a developer. Is automation really replacing freshers, or are we expecting too much from them from day one?
Expectation has definitely increased. To call it if it's too much or too less is probably difficult, but expectation has increased. And the bar for qualifying into a job or cracking an interview has definitely gone up. So the guys who are coming in as entry level developers are already more skilled than what it was earlier. So I don't think there is too much expectation starting from day one in any company. No matter who you hire, you always give them some amount of time to pick up stuff and get used to company culture, get used to uh, how code is being written and things like that. But as far as automation is concerned, I think to learn or get up to pace with other people in the company when you are a fresher, it's a lot more easier now, because earlier what you had to do is you had to rely on your managers or other people or colleagues if you got stuck with anything, right? You had to go bother them 100 times and then ask how to proceed next, or you would get stuck more often. Simplifies this a lot more. You have answers to a lot of questions from AI without even having to go ask your manager or anybody else. So that also reduces the amount of, so there could be some amount of lag, or there could be wasted time if you have to go ask your manager for something, right? They might be busy, or there could be something that comes as a hindrance. But now with AI, there is quick answer. There is instant answer. If you get stuck with something, there is instant solution to whatever you're stuck with. So I think learning and coming up to pace has become a lot more easy, and expectation has increased. But I don't think it's too much from day one in any company as such.
But the competition has increased as well as expectations, and as well as the learning has, maybe it's what do you say, decreased and gotten easier, but still the expectations are there, right?
Expectation is definitely there, but I am trying to make my point here that when somebody is hired, because the competition is already so high, they're already at a certain level of skill. They're already upskilled when compared to everybody else amongst their peers. So the starting point, they have a head start basically. So they're already starting ahead of other people. And because that's the case, it's easier for them to start off and then start picking up new skills already, because you're already cherry picking people from this whole lot of moderately skilled people. So it's easier to learn and then get up to pace, although the expectation is higher.
So upskilling is the way in this 2025, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
There was even a story about how a parliamentary panel that flagged a steep decline in placements between 2021 to 2024. Not just tier 3 colleges, but even old IITs, and that's not seasonal. I think that's structural. So, Suchin, you often speak to colleges on the ground. Are they still using the same old model for placements while the market has completely changed?
So I think what overall my experience at least has been is COVID did play a significant impact, because it affected their bottom line very significantly, and the numbers that they were showing year on year took a significant dip. Post that, there was a slight uptrend, which was then met by the AI crossing a certain threshold. And then with the tariffs, I think the last year has seen another sort of probably not as a sharp decline as COVID, a little more steady. The colleges seem to be aware of needing to do something more, but they are not abandoning the older approach that they already had, because whatever they feel is that that's what they know, and they know to have it worked in the past, so they stick by that. What we're seeing is that there is an emphasis on upskilling on some of the colleges, where they invite external vendors to come in, and but even there they're a little tentative, where we see people relying on just videos being provided, and students learning themselves by paying a certain fee. Not as holistic as we would like it as employers. What we also observed in the last, let's say, a year or so, the interviews that we have been conducting have shown a significant number of people trying to use AI without being fully confident about the basics. So they're able to use AI and quickly generate some answer for our tasks, but the moment we ask them to change it or improvise it a bit, they're stuck. So which kind of tells us that earlier students would have to put a little bit of effort even to understand the basics, and even if they did that well, we could sort of think that okay, this person is likely to pick it up as we teach them. So with AI being available on our side, the expectation is that the student will be able to do a lot more learning by themselves and be at least a little bit better position when they do their interview than we used to see them in the past, which doesn't seem to be the case. The other thing that happens is, as a company, we're ongoing hiring. We may increase it or decrease it, so we tend to look out and for students who are exceptional, or at least cross the bar that we have. And in recent times, we have found lesser and lesser of those who meet that bar that we would like them to have when they're joining, even though there are resources like AI and stuff. There are the smaller section of the students who have leveraged this to become really good, but on an average student, I think we feel like their skill level might have dipped a little in the last 1 year or so. So the colleges are still need to do more. Probably the mindset of placement being something to think about in sixth semester has to really change now, and students need to be building their skills and being aware of where they stand earlier in college, from first year, second year, so that you can really accelerate getting closer to the third year. I think that might be the direction colleges need to take, which is still not fully there yet.
Yeah, even student needs to be confident about what they want and what they want to achieve in professional or personal lives. So to recap, we have to make sure that we are using AI correctly. We have to be skilled in what we are doing and have foundational courses and have foundations about what we are learning. So then we can leverage AI to the best. Now let's talk about the most controversial case, that's Soham Parekh and the multi-job reality. He was a guy who had 5 jobs at once and said that I had no other choice, and this was not just a moonlighting case, this was something survival for him. So my first question is to you, Arvind. Okay, what do you think led to someone holding 5 jobs? Is that greed, or is that just desperation, or just boredom?
I mean, even before you start blaming the guy for anything, if I read that he sent out emails to each of these companies stating he does not have any other hobbies, and then coding is the only thing he does well. Considering that is true, right? It may not be, but considering that is true, and if coding was the only thing that he knew, if he was doing 8 hours of work for one company, what else would he do in the other few hours? He claims he did not have friends, he does not hang out with other people. And companies are hungry for people like this, right? They want people who can work and then they're really passionate about coding. So it would still be okay if he did one job and then did one part-time job after his regular work hours, which I think is okay, because he claims that he did not know anything else and then he did not hang out with other people. But even then, 5 jobs at a time is crazy. So I don't know how he did it. Then I think he saw this coming. He knew that one day people will figure out. And now he claims that he's just working for one company, he's trying to win their trust and all of that. So it all boils down to how much work is being assigned to him from one employer, and then if that's worth his time.
Yeah, crazy is definitely
Yeah.
the right word for this.
Yeah, so I have a different perspective about it. I think it also has to do with where you have been and where you live and where you have worked. I think when we are in India, we expect the person who is the, say basically, even if I'm filling up a form somewhere, right? If there is a way that form can be not submitted in the most honest way, right? It will not be considered the responsibility of the form filler. It will be considered the responsibility of the someone who is expecting the form to be completed to ask for supporting documentation and review the documentation, right? So the onus lies with someone who is hiring someone or someone who is asking someone for information, right? Say opening up a bank account. The onus lies with which? Whom? The bank account, the bank manager or the bank employee. So that's one type of a culture where the onus is lying with the service provider, right? Or the person who's asking you to fill something or do something for them. And there's a different culture where the onus lies with the person who's offering the service. So there's a complete stark difference in cultures, right? That's a high trust culture and there's a low trust culture. In low trust culture, policies and procedures are put in place so that people don't break the system. And if there is an ability to break the system, that's considered to be if the person who made the system should have put more safeguards in place so that it was not breakable, right? But at high trust society, their expectation is that people will not break the system. And when they break the system, if they ever get caught, the penalties will be super severe, like crazy severe, right? So there is in a high trust society like in the US, however many jobs I may have joined or my colleagues may have joined, nobody has ever checked the marks card or checked the certificate. Anybody could lie about their bachelor's degree, master's degree, their grades. No one checks. We apply for college admissions, no one checks. It is expected that if you are providing some information, you are providing it truthfully and honestly. And if it ever gets found out, in most cases, it may never even get found out. If it ever gets found out, there is a societal shame for that person that he was being dishonest. And there's also severe penalties. Right? So there is a penalty for perjury. Penalty for perjury is not a joke. That means you gave fraudulent information to government or whoever was hiring you or whoever was providing you service. So with that big cultural difference, someone who's an employer in the US will expect an employee to be honest about what they want to do. Right? If you are going to be working full-time for me, the full-time expectation is that you are only exclusively going to be working for me. If you have with 8 hours of work or 10 hours of work we are giving you, if you still have free time available, and Western employer will expect the employee to say, hey, I have free time available, I will be working somewhere else. In most cases, the employer will say, okay, that's fine. You are already doing my work. That's fine, right? But claiming to every employer that you are working full time, just exclusively for them, right? That in a Western mindset is an unforgivable sin, right? But someone who has grew up in India, it may not be that big a deal for them because the cultural difference is there, right? I mean, so it's that difference, right? So people don't get into trouble in America for doing something wrong. They get in bigger trouble for lying about it, right?
And then getting caught. Yeah.
Yeah, lying about it. Bill Clinton didn't get, he was impeached not for doing what he did. He was impeached for lying, right? So it's that big cultural difference. Even when we fill the form, visa immigration form, many people get their visas get revoked or they get deported, not for what they did in America. Many times they find out that when they filled the form, they wrote something incorrectly in the form, right? So in India, we are so free about giving our logins and passwords to agents. Let's say, hey, agent, fill it for me, right? We don't realize that penalty of perjury is also there. That if tomorrow government just scrutinizes you for anything else, right? And in that scrutiny, one of the scrutinies is all the application forms that you have filled over your lifetime. And they realize you wrote something in those forms which was not factual, and you actually didn't do it. You gave it to the agent. They don't care. They said it's your login and you are responsible for it, right? So it's a big cultural difference that made the employers feel like they were betrayed and cheated, and he felt like it was reasonable for him to do what he did because in his mind he was providing the service that they were asking him to do, right? But if you look at it from that's one thing, right? If he was providing the service. But then there is another point of view also, that he was not providing the service because he had taken so many hours of work, which was not possible for him to deliver the quality of work or amount of work that each employer would have expected. But his ability to get new work was so good that he would always have new pipeline of companies lined up who would want to hire him. So any company, after having gone through the due diligence of just finding the right candidate in terms of having someone with the right skill, would have taken them a month to do, right? Yeah. No company wants to second guess their decision right away as soon as they hire them, because they say, okay, he may be still learning the ways of our code base. He may be learning how we work as a team. They give new hires a benefit of doubt because, like I said, it's a cultural thing. The expectation is that the person that we hired is going to be honest. They're not going to cheat, right? It's a high trust society. So they will expect that if a person is not able to do work, there must be some reason. Let's give him benefit of doubt for a month or two. And by the time the month or two would be over, they would realize that, okay, this is someone who is not producing the kind of work or amount of work that we expected from him in the interview process. So there may be something going on and we should let this person go. But so now there are 2 months of wasted time, 1 month of wasted interview time. But in the meantime, he or someone who does something like this would have found another company in the pipeline. Now that becomes part of the employers. So just by rinse and repeat, you can get to 5 employers for your whole year. So that, in my opinion, is pure greed and nothing else.
I think that's an interesting point Vishal made, because if the same employers were in India, you would definitely blame the employer, right? You would think they did not do the background check properly, so I am not at fault. So because it's a contrast, it's a low trust society here, an Indian who goes from here to there is naturally bound to think that what he did was right, and then he did it for his need.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the reason he mostly worked with American companies. He did not work in Indian companies because the Indian employer has a different mindset. They know this can happen and it is their responsibility to make sure they make a foolproof system. But the American employer doesn't think about making the foolproof system. He expects the employee to be he trusts the employee to make and if you ask an employer to make a foolproof system, they'll say, I don't want those kind of employees. So I don't want to make that kind of a system, right? So when I was in my initial years, many people asked my boss, why doesn't he have a check-in, check-out card, right? Why doesn't he make people check in and check out, coming into the office and going out of the office, right? He said, that's not the kind of culture I want to have. And I would not want to have those kind of employees. Sooner or later, we'll realize that they're not the right fit and we're just going to let them go, right? So none of the companies in where I worked felt like, especially the ones who are founder led in a small team, they don't like this culture of having people check in and check out, where the time would be tracked. I mean, in larger companies, people are checking in and checking out for security and access control, not for them to clock in and clock out, right? But, a company in India may not think of it as a big deal to monitor clock in and clock out. There are also companies who are monitoring um, you know, screen share utilization, right? The startups which want their employees to feel part of the team and part of that big mission to create something unique, right? They want them to be completely invested in the idea. They will not want to have that kind of a culture where they're being, somebody's looking behind your back over your shoulder all the time. Because if they have employees like that who need to be looked over the shoulder all the time, they will not be driven and motivated to create that kind of breakthrough uh, invention or research which will make them into a multi-billion-dollar company, right? So I think he figured out which companies to reach out to. He had a very good personality to make them think of him as a great employee, great prospect. But obviously, he would not have been able to produce the kind of work that would be expected in such companies, because when people work at startups, they don't work 40 hours a week. They usually work 60, 70 hours a week, because the expectation or drive to create that big um, enhancement to the product is so great that they feel like, okay, if this becomes a success, I want to feel that I was part of that journey, that ride, where we grew from 10 employees to thousands of employees, where our product got used by millions of people, right? We went through an IPO. I mean, there's a different kick altogether, right? Creating something new that the whole world knows about. And that's what they expect from their people, and that's the kind of work they expect from each one of them.
A slightly different, or additional point to this is for the students, right? So, from my point of view, absolute no, right? Most companies in their agreements already have non-compete clauses, which, as someone entering a company would obviously be expected to read it, especially someone who's, signing it should read it. And the other aspect of it, it is really not a good choice for you to make for your own career and growth. Just take the example. What happens probably a year down the line? Would you be listing all those 5 companies? And you say that I worked on this company in your resume. Even if you had not marked the time periods and adjusted them, 5 companies in the span of 2 years will be a red flag. We'll immediately say, no, this person is not the right fit. So you can't claim those companies on your experience. So you end up with the same thing that you had earlier and becomes pure greed, because it's not for career growth, it's not for knowledge, it's not for any of it. So what if you were someone like Arvind was saying, is that there are people who are enthusiastic and they just sit in front of a computer and do code all day. What maybe that you want to do is you spend your time doing what the employer expects of you, and beyond that you try to do something innovative in the line of work of the employer, so that if something brings value to your company, they're obviously going to encourage it. So you could improve your skills related to what the company does, or a role in the company you want to move towards, or a product you want to create which may be of interest for the company. You create a small concept, you show it to your manager or someone else and say, is this something that may be interesting? So you don't know where. There are so many channels through which you can, channel your energy to be able to bring benefit to you, either as skills or as even career growth, by utilizing your time effectively, even outside the workspace that you have.
That's actually really practical advice, Sachin.
Um,
The reason this case is so interesting is because there is literally people looking for jobs, and then there's one guy who's had like 5 jobs at the same time, which
This must have been capable, right? It's not easy to get a job in companies like the ones he was able to get into, right?
yeah,
Was very capable. I mean, like Suchin said, if he had stuck with the one which he felt which had the maximum promise of creating something transformational, right? And if he was the key contributor in that company,
yeah,
just with the stock options of that company over a period of 10, 15 years, he would have done so well that even if he had a 1.5 million run rate here for 2, 3 years, that would pale in comparison to what that equity would have grown to, right? And then being part of this company, which he would have grown from maybe nothing in revenue to $100 million in revenue, because he was getting into those kind of companies, the newer employers would have been willing to pay him even more, in mid management, senior management. Look at Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella. People like who are honest throughout their career are the only ones who become like them. right? They're making 200 million plus every year. So if you are if you are very bright and you have the potential of possibly going all the way to top, why do you want to ruin your reputation? Because you may think of it a lot of money now, but in the long run, you still have 25 years of your career, 30 years of career left. In the long run, you're just not looking at the long game. You're looking you're very short sighted.
Yep. Yeah. Channeling your energies at the right things is how you can grow. So actually now this case has become a trend. So my question is to Buleman. Buleman, do you think managers are worried about this trend right now, and should they empathize more with employees who are stuck in a no growth loop?
I think managers somewhere are worried if somebody in our team is also doing the same. But rather than that, it's more about trust and ethics, right? When you hire a certain employee, you expect the employee to put in their full focus and energy to the role that they have been selected for. And it's not just about the candidate, it's more about their focus and energy, especially into roles where collaboration with the team is required. It's not fair for the team as well as it's not fair for the organization as a whole. So the expectation of an employee being hired with a certain set of work assigned to him, it falls onto the manager as well to make sure that they're occupied, as Arvind already mentioned. But apart from that, I think managers would also, in a way where you say empathize with them, probably work on creating an environment of growth in the company wherein you keep challenging your employees. As long as a person is being challenged to grow, I think they will stick on and they would not look at different opportunities other place.
It is definitely going to put a doubt in people's mind. If I was a senior management or a management, and I was more willing to give people a benefit of doubt, because they may genuinely be having hard time understanding how the company works, and their productivity may be genuinely low in the beginning months, which would have been okay, right? Because we would trust them. They're saying that it's going to take me time. We would trust them. But in the back of every manager's mind will now be this case. They'll be like, okay, am I being taken for a ride? So the genuine people who would have needed some more leeway will probably not get that. And they may get let go early on, even though they might have turned out to be decent employees in the long run. And they may not have been doing anything like this. Right?
You may not think twice before taking a decision to let go of an employee if you figure out that the employee is doing something like this. And it's also a conflict of interest for the company as well. One, maybe their IPs are going to get affected, or with respect to the employee, there's also burnout. How long can you handle multiple jobs at different organizations? And burnout is not just going to affect one organization, it's going to affect all the organizations that you are working with, which in turn will lead you to getting out of everywhere and then looking for something else again. And this process is just going to keep repeating and repeating.
I think
sorry. So I think the Balama brought up another point, the concern about IP, right? It's not just the concern about IP, it's also concern about customer data. And the customer data security is one of the most important aspects when you're running a business, right? Because there are many laws in many parts of the world where you have to protect customer data, or if it gets disclosed, there are very strict processes to follow in case of breach. It's not, I have heard that it's not just that somebody is taking multiple jobs himself or herself. There are apparently also cases where somebody is taking multiple jobs, but considering they will not be able to produce the work needed for all the jobs, they have some other people in the background doing the job. So one person is taking the job and there are like 3 or 4 people, say, helping him or her to do the job. So you may say that, okay, at least this person is producing the work. this person is not slacking off and he is giving the company what they are requiring. I think that scenario is way worse, even 10 times more worse than the first scenario, because in the first scenario there was lack of productivity and there was some cheating and you were not being honest, you were dishonest about it. In the second scenario, you are putting the company in an incredible amount of risk, legal risk, litigation risk, because now who got to see your customer data, you don't even know. And if you as a company get to know that your customer data went to someone who was unauthorized, now you have to disclose data breach, and you have to let all your customers know that your data was breached. Reputational damage can be worth billions of dollars, right? So it is very important early on itself to identify, I think, as soon as you hire a candidate, is this candidate trustworthy? Is this candidate saying what is in his or her mind? If the candidate is not exactly honest about what is in his or her mind, because the candidate is going to think from their perspective, it won't even cross their mind that the company might go through a litigation and there may be FTC regulations they may have to follow, they may have to do breach notification, it may cost reputational damages. Employee is not going to think about that. He's going to think about, oh, company is giving me work, I'm producing the work, whether I'm doing it or whether it's my brother doing it or one of my colleagues doing it or one of my assistants doing it. As long as I'm doing the work, I'm getting my work done, I feel not guilty, right? But they don't realize that the kind of damage they might be doing to the company. So the companies will have to be very careful, not just to prioritize skill, they have to prioritize honesty over anything else. And if they have any doubt in terms of someone's honesty, then they should rather hire someone else rather than going with someone who may come across as promising, because the risk is too high.
Yeah. One of the things that we do, at least to maybe mitigate it to a certain extent, is have like a probationary period where we, make sure we are assigning and keeping track of, people's progress. And so that you have early signs and, it does not become a prolonged thing that you realize much later. You have already decided to review something at a particular defined date, and it makes it easier to sort of reduce an impact if there is any such issue.
So now whoever has become the team lead is already one of the best, right? And if there are 10 team leads, out of 10 teams, not all the 10 team leads are going to become managers, and not all 10 managers are going to become directors, and not all 10 directors are going to become senior directors, and not all 10 senior directors are going to become VPs. As you keep moving up the layers in a company, everybody is skilled in their job, because they would not have otherwise reached that level. They would not have reached the senior manager level if they were not skilled in their job, right? So what makes the company decide to keep someone and not keep others, not give them upward mobility? The ones who don't get upward mobility, they get laid off during the bear seasons, because if you go to any of the tech companies, most of the people working in the tech companies are young, relatively young, 50, less than 45, 50 years of age. So how is it possible these companies have been around for 35 years, 40 years, and everybody is young? And only the ones who are middle-aged or older are the ones who are in management positions. Not everybody can get into management positions. So if you want to retain a job at this top-tier company for the long term, you need to grow in the company and keep getting those promotions to move up, because not everybody, it's like a pyramid, right? The bottom is going to be very wide and it's going to get narrow as you move up the top. And as you go 30% up the pyramid, then everybody is skilled because they have already gone through so much filtering. And all that matters after that 30% is, are you coming across as a genuine person? Can people trust you? Are you likable? Right? Those abilities to come across as likable, genuine, honest, trustworthy, loyal, those are only going to be with people who are honest right from the beginning of their career. If someone is taking shortcuts at the beginning of their career, that's likely going to be their personality. They're not going to change somewhere in the middle, most likely. Some may, but most likely they're going to be like that. And that's one. And two, if they're part of the same company where they have spent many years, where they have the most likelihood of growing up the ladder, they already have done damage to their reputation right at the beginning years itself, because maybe he's a great technically, but in terms of these other soft skills that you look for a person in senior management, he or she is not there, right? So if somebody wants that big reward in the long run, then being that honest, genuine, trustworthy, loyal person right from the beginning really helps. And if you look at all the great leaders that we see all the way at the top from Indian origin, you will see their journey throughout has been like that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense even for entry level into job interviews, right? More than so when you're hiring so many people and you're interviewing so many people, most of them might come across as same, and then the guys who have an edge over the others are the ones who come across as genuine and honest, right? So if that is cultivated as a habit right from the get go, it makes a lot of difference in your entire career. So I think that's something that even freshers who are applying for jobs should focus on. In addition to just being good at your skill, it could be coding, it could be anything else. Trying to come across as honest and ethical in whatever you're talking about. It does not have to be something at a large scale. It could also be not lying about a project that you did not work on, right? You can just show things that you actually worked on and tell be honest about it. Do not pick up a friend's project and then say this is what I worked on, and then when you're questioned about it, you're clueless about what you have to answer. So right from that stage, if you know, as even as an interviewer, the only thing you're expecting a candidate to know is uh, everything that's on his resume, at least, right? If he's claiming that he worked on a project, you expect him or her to know everything about that project. You're not going to ask someone about rocket science if they worked on a database management system project in college. So I think it's very important to not lie in your resume, of course, and just cultivate that honesty right from your first job interview.
I think to add on to that, we have seen the trend where students have been using AI just to answer the questions in the interview. And they mostly do not come across as honest, because of which the interviewer is more open to not considering them for the role. And I think in India, at least, candidates have come into this culture where if they do not know something, they refuse to say no. Instead, they try to figure out the answer by utilizing AI and just want to give an answer to the interviewer just to come across as they know something, even though if they do not know the entire thing. So freshers, I think, would need to work on being honest, even if it's the smallest thing that they do not know about. They just can, say no that they do not know, and they would learn about it. That willingness to learn is something that an interviewer is always looking for, because those are the kind of people they would want in their organization, who are able to adapt and grow along with the organization.
Yeah, I think at the beginning, I think Arvind said that if we had a question 4 years back and we did not know the answer to, and if we didn't find it on the internet, then we were clueless about what to do, right? And the current generation, they have such an advantage that they can pretty much ask anything to AI, right? How do I dress for my first day of office? These kind of questions you could only ask a person. Now you can ask AI, right? I have an important family event in the first month of my employment. How do I talk to my manager about it? AI will give you an answer on how to talk to your manager about it, right? There are so many answers that we could never get earlier, but now we can get. So the people with AI can actually perform so much better in their office, even if they didn't have those soft skills or being politically correct. and would struggle to make an impression in the very first few months. Now they can ask the AI, at the same time learn from AI on how to do it, right? And similar goes for technical skills. And if they do not know something, they can ask the AI for a technical skill. And how do I learn it? Teach it to me in a step-by-step way. It will teach it to you in a step-by-step way. That's a good utilization of AI, right? Then there is another utilization of AI, that the interviewer is going to ask you a question, and then you're going to sneakily going to quickly ask the AI the same question, or you're going to turn the voice mode of the AI on, and it'll give you the answer on a screen, and you'll try to repeat that. Every employer understands when that is happening. Some of the questions are so simple. If you just thought, you would be able to answer it, because it's not a technical question. It's a question like, if you were in a city and this situation happened, what would you do? Right? It's related to you and your personality on what would you do. But if you are getting an answer from AI for such a question also, you're obviously going to fumble and come across as someone who is absolutely not genuine. I think what has happened with AI, many people have become so dependent on AI for every question that they have not memorized already, that they just run to AI for everything, right? It's like giving a little first grader or a kindergartner calculator to do multiplication. And now that you got the toy to do multiplication all the time and nobody stopped you from using it, even if you asked 2 plus 2 or 2 times 2, you're still going to do 2 times 2 on a calculator, right? So some of the people have taken up AI just like that, where anything that comes up, they just want to ask the AI, and they have lost their confidence to answer even the basic questions on their own.
But
So that we have to stop.
don't you think if somebody is relying on AI to figure out what they should tell their employer to take leave on in their first month, that's also in a way making them lose confidence to
Possibly, but
Yeah.
there is a politically correct etiquette to ask. They will ask the same thing, but how do I smoothen that, soften that in a way where it comes across that I am considerate, I will be willing to offer to work late on some days. I'm open to willing to work on a weekend. You have to, even though the employer may not take it, but you have to be willing to offer something beyond normal, so where you can show that I have concern for the employer or the project, and I understand my project is going to suffer, but at the same time I'm willing to make up for it. I think a new fresher coming out of college, it may not immediately dawn on them that that's also they have to do. We should not be like, I'm not available on Friday, second Friday of my first month of employment, and I will be gone, right? There's a difference between that and the difference between coming across as, oh, he's gone, but he asked that in a very nice way. And I think when I was a 22-year-old right out of college, maybe I also didn't know how to ask the right way. But we learned to ask the right way by doing it the wrong way, or somebody mentoring us, or learning it the hard way many years later,
Yeah.
right? And they can learn it right away. And they will be like, okay, these are suggestions the AI is giving, but now I have validated my approach was already right. So they could at least validate it. Maybe they already had thought about it. They could validate it.
Yeah, I think you can rely on AI for things like that, but to what extent you use what AI tells you is what matters. Because if AI gives you, let's say, a paragraph that you can send as an email to your manager, you copy the same thing, you put it to a manager as an email. It's not rocket science for a manager to figure out that's not AI generated, right? You have a lot of blogs, you have a lot of LinkedIn posts that you can easily find out that is written by AI. So my take on this is that you should rely on AI for everything technical, and everything non-technical you still try to be a human being for as long as possible. So if I, as an employee, am making a mistake in the first month of my work in the way I'm asking my manager for something that I need, I should make that mistake, because only when I make that mistake is when I know that I should not. But if I go to AI and then AI tells this is what you got to do, and then you put the same thing across, I don't think
But
there's
if you're
reinforcement happening there.
But if your job is related to customer service and how you interact with
Absolutely.
customers, yeah, right. I was recently talking to one of my friends. He's my school friend. He is a partner at a management consulting firm, and he was telling me the quality of emails that's going out to customers from his team has drastically improved. There's so much emotional intelligence in the emails, and there's so much thought put into it, right? And they would have people review such emails in many cases if we're going to certain customers. Now they don't do it because they see that the employees by themselves are getting the, having the AI also do one level of vetting for the email to come across as in the way which the customers would like. So I mean, you have to strike the right balance. If you go, I agree with Arvind that if you go to AI for everything, you're going to lose confidence. You're not going to be able to send an email on your own or even answer a question, because you would have second guessed yourself so much that if somebody asks you something where you have to impromptu answer, you'd be like, oh, I may not be able to answer it because I get everything checked from AI. So don't take it too far, and use it for positive things to learn rather than becoming completely dependent on it to answer everything.
That was a good discussion. This could be a next podcast session actually, where we discuss is AI actually um, harming our critical thinking skills? I personally believe so. I agree on
Absolutely.
that with you, Arvind. So yeah, let's just zoom out for a minute. We got derailed there a bit. Back to our placement stats and the Indian freshers finding it hard to find a job in this job market. We also are seeing a lot of cases where freshers receive offer letters from mass recruiters, big names and package, and they get like 3 to 5 LPA packages, but then there's silence, and they give reasons that maybe you are asked to reskill on some platform, or there's no time for project allocation. In many cases, joining never happens for freshers. When can the freshers realize if the offer is real or if the offer is misleading? Are there any do's and don'ts that freshers can follow?
I mean, I think these mass recruiting companies, they don't have work of their own, right? Their work depends on someone else giving them the work, and then they pass that work on to their workers. And they never know when the work is going to come. They can either not hire anybody at all, and then once they get the project, say Apple is giving a project to TCS, right? And now they need 1,000 people for it, right? Or maybe any other company. Now at that time, they need to have 1,000 people ready to go, right? Or even if they don't have them ready to go, they need to have them identified so they can get them ready to go in some months of training. So looking from the business model of the companies, it is in their interest to have identified people already, whether they have work or not. But if they don't even have a letter of intent or any commitment from the customer, then they are also avoiding to get the people on board, because then they have to accrue salaries for them, right? They'll have to pay them. So if it was a bull market that everybody was hiring and the outsourcing companies had, had loads of work coming in from all these companies that are looking for for augmentation of their staff, then whatever offers would have been offered, they would be honored right away. It's just because there's a downturn in terms of hiring, not just the direct talent, also consulting talent. So the consulting companies are also unsure about how many people they would need, and that's why they're just keeping these guys in limbo, and they don't know when the start date is going to be. And most likely the consulting company themselves will do not know when do we need to hire them, because it depends on when they get the next contract and when the start date for those people is, right? It also many times depends on visas. What will be the visa likelihood of getting the visa, and how many visas they will get out of how many they will apply, right? So if someone is relying just on this job and they really want to start right away, I think they should find another job. Get a job in one of these large companies who hire a lot of people, but they don't have projects of their own to get you started with right away. You may get that job, but you should continue to look for other opportunities where you might be able to start right away. I think people in India might know better, so if we can ask one of the other guys as well.
I can probably Which in again first-hand experience of this. So this is not a new issue as such. So offer letters being given, this happens both in a boom and a bear market. What happens is, let's say for my personal experience, we were around 2010, so recovery after the financial crisis, pretty good. What happens is a company like Tech Mahindra, which is one of the big recruiters, in a boom market, they need to show a bench strength to even get a contract. So if I say I have 1,000 people with these skills ready, that's when I get a contract. So it's even before I have business. This is for me to get business, I need to do this. And in like a bear market, like Vishal said, I may have already hired these people and I don't have a project to allocate them. So I got hired as the first company that came on campus, but the last person to receive a joining date. And it was a year after I actually got graduated. So one of the things that happened was I got this particular job, and then I was a little casual on the remaining jobs, and I didn't take up. Let's say there was a Accenture job which I didn't take up, and all the Accenture people joined earlier, all the Cognizant people joined earlier, and I with the first offer was the last one to join. So I think the suggestion from my side is that you continue to interview and you keep more offers in hand so that you can make that best choice. Don't rely that you have one offer, it is guaranteed. At least my joining date came after a year, which is not the case for everyone, right? In a lot of cases, increasingly, that is what you might see, is that when the orders are not coming through for companies, the ones where they have shown an offer or a letter of intent of hiring will withdraw it. This has happened as well. So as Vishal said, I think you need to keep continuing to focus and trying to find more positions in hand so that you can make a better choice for yourself.
Just following up on that, Suchin, do you think colleges or placement officers should explain how to students what happen if this happens and what you should do? And if there are also cases where colleges, if you get one offer letter, you can't get another one as well. What should it do in that case?
Yeah, that's the challenge. So from a college's point of view, they are looking to increase their bottom line. That means that these many number of students have gotten placed. So the incentive for them is to prevent somebody who's already got an offer to do too many more. And they say that if it's the salary package is drastically different, then you can apply for it. But that might not be something that you can change. So you may have to then do your individual pursuit outside of what the college is offering you.
Everybody looks at their own personal interest, right? Colleges are also looking for that number, percentage of their students that got placed. They don't care about whether once placed did they really start the work, right? If they got 100% employment, maybe then they would care, right? Because now every one of my students has gotten placed. Now I should focus on making sure that whoever got placed, they got a start date. But no college is getting 100% of their students placed, and there is a competition between colleges on getting the largest number possible. Would they focus on someone who's already gotten an offer, or would they rather focus on someone who has not gotten an offer at all? Right? So the priority is to focus on people who don't have any job at all. Right? So the candidate himself has to figure out that if I don't have a confirmed start date from any employer, and that confirmed start date is not within the next 1 or 2 months. You may have a confirmed start date 1 year from now. They may rescind the offer in that time. That's a long time from now. So if you don't have a confirmed offer letter within a month or two, then it is fair game for you to keep looking. But you can't keep 2 or 3 or 4 offers like you told everybody I'm joining in next 2 weeks. That's also very unethical. That's unethical. But if you don't have a confirmed offer, then keep looking is not unethical because they are not making a commitment. So you're not bound by any commitment. So, and if you're not able to find a job, then try to do some freelancing. If the freelancing doesn't also come your way, try to contribute in open source, but figure out opportunities for you to get some experience. And even if it means working somewhere for free, as long as there is a possibility of that place giving you some new skill, which will help you get a job somewhere else, or there is a possibility that if I impress them, they may say, okay, come on, join us as a full-time. There are so many startups you can go try to reach out to, especially the ones who are not too large, where founders may still be accessible, and you can say, I'm so passionate about what you are doing, and I will be willing to work for free for a few months, because my work is not starting for some time anyways. I will work for free because I really like what you're doing, and I really passionate to be part of this cause. If they like you in the first few months, there's almost it's guaranteed, and as long as they're growing, they will, rather than hiring someone they don't know and they're interviewing them and getting to know them only on a video call for 15 minutes, they would rather hire someone that has worked with them for a few months. Right? This culture of working for free and reaching out, I don't think is big in India yet. I think that needs to be normalized, where people are willing to work for free. And if you find, especially in companies where you feel like, oh, that they are doing they're doing the kind of work I'm really passionate about, and they seem to be growing and they seem to be hiring people from time to time, even if I need to put my foot in the door for free, because that will allow them to see my work, or even if they don't hire, fine, at least I got to work in my area of interest for some time. And when you go there, most of the time it works out. They usually converts into a full time.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one of the things that happens is, as an employer, from the employer's perspective, it's not always easy to project what our requirement would be 6 months down the line or 8 months down the line, because campus recruitment begins in sixth semester, and there's still a good 8 months before the student becomes available to join. So it is tough on the employers as well to be able to project that far ahead. Larger companies have that plan in place, but even they have to make changes as the time goes. So with the smaller companies, it's even more difficult to know what your requirement in terms of resources is going to be. So it's not unusual that a joining date is not confirmed to them. Typically, it would be confirmed about a month or 2 or 3 before the graduation. But if you're getting close to graduation and you don't have a starting date yet, then so you want to start trying to use other channels like Vishal had mentioned, probably a few months before it. You have waited for a few months, that okay, I've not got a joining date yet, so then you keep trying further.
So that's not a red flag if someone is doing a freelance gig or an internship on the side, if they still haven't received a joining date, right? Even after graduation, right? Okay, cool. Just to wrap up this session now, I have one question to the whole panel. What would you say to a student who has a job offer but no joining date, and how long should they wait before they move on? And what are the 2 or 3 red flags in a job offer that they should watch out for as freshers?
Yeah, start looking for jobs right away. No joining date means that you don't have any commitment towards the employer yet. Right? You got the job, you have that as one of the options. The same way you start looking for another option. You keep looking till you find someone who is giving you a start date that's within the next 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe a month, right? Because this month is just not too far away. But if it's not within a month and you don't, then you can just keep looking, right? Because those no date could mean a date in 6 months or date 1 year away. So I don't think anybody should waste 6 months at that age, because that age they have an ability to learn a lot. You are young, you're energetic, you can work a lot. Getting as much work experience in those years is incredibly important. And even if it means working for free, but work somewhere. Just don't sit idle, just waiting for your joining date to come. And even if you don't find a job directly related to your field, then just work in any area where you could at least get customer experience. Because the customer experience and being able to interact with people will help the person a long way in the long run. As I said, as you keep moving up the ladder in companies, your technical skills do not matter after a while. What matters is how you interact with others. And if you get that experience early on in your career, it helps a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's a time where you need to keep building up your skill, so that you can reach out to things which are more in line with your interests. It is not very uncommon for the large employers that even after you get a joining date, again, this is personal experience for me, I join, and for the next 1 year, I was not allocated a project, right? And we're just sitting. And so that's the time where you try to utilize the resources at your disposal. You'll have resources in your office itself that you can utilize to, get trainings. They'll have available trainings and stuff that you can go through and improve your skill. And then independently also build on that skill as well. And then I think I try to get closer to where your interest lies. Also try get to closer to discovering what your interest itself is, because that's where you'll be able to put in your 100%.
Yeah, if you love your work, then work will not feel like work, and then you'll be willing to put in a lot of hours without it feeling like a chore. Right? If somebody hates going to work every day, it's like, oh, another day and another 8 hours, then they should rather quit and find out what they want to do.
Yeah, I think as far as how long you have to wait after you get your offer letter is concerned, I don't think it's that should be the goal at all. Getting one offer letter should not be the goal. It should be a pursuit. You get one offer letter, you try to look for the next one, unless and until the offer letter that you've got is something that you really like and has a joining date that has a very short notice. Let's say 2 weeks from now or 1 month from now. Anything more than 1 month, I think you can still look out for better. See, I think colleges already have this, but they categorize all of these placements, right? So they have a small tier, medium tier, and high tier. So if you get something in the small company tier, then you look for something in the medium tier, and then you always try to aim better until you find a company that you are satisfied with. And there could also be a case where you got an offer letter and then you have a joining date that's there in 2 weeks, but you don't like that job. That does not mean you can stop right there. You can still try. You can still try to get a better job, look for a better job. And if that works out, that'll probably keep you happier rather than getting into a company just because you got an offer letter and not liking what you're doing. So it makes more sense to just keep applying, keep looking out for better jobs until you are really happy with what you have.
Just a small thing to add on to what Arvind is saying is that it is not very typical with the mass recruiting companies that they give you any idea about what you're going to be doing, because it really depends on when you're joining and what project is, has a need at that point of time that you will get into it. So with the large recruiters, this is a problem. You may talk to your seniors who've gotten placed to kind of get an idea about what is likely the kind of projects that are there, whether it's networking or is it something else, to better gauge where you're likely to be. But that is a challenge. So I think beyond the mass recruiters, still trying to look for something which is a little more definite and in line with what you have is definitely worth pursuing.
Well, that was all very insightful. Thank you, everyone, for your time again. I hope we solved a lot of questions today for the freshers that are watching this. And thanks to the panel again. And we will be back with the next episode. Thank you again. Bye.